They did this one thing when I was in high school. They decided, hey, you know, these kids are responsible. They want to come to school, they can't.
Call to order the meeting agenda of the William Park Planning Commission. Mike, got it on.
The arrows more Let's call to order the regular Planning Commission meeting, Woodland Park, for November 14th, and we'd like the roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Beginning with John DeVoe.
I'm here.
Jeff Watson. Here. Lee Brown.
Here.
Ellen Carrick.
Here.
Vicki Good.
Here.
Ken Hartsfield.
Here.
Jerry Penland.
Here.
Peter Scanlon.
Here.
Charles Schrader.
Here.
We're all here, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Will you join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll go over the minutes of the meeting of October 24th. Anybody got any comments, changes? Yes, ma'am.
There was just one word that was possibly under number 7, the work session A. Second line, one of the last words, I believe it needs another S on it. Assess. Okay.
Anybody else? Need a motion to approve? We have a motion. Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We shall move on. Public hearings. Item A is for a flood hazard development permit adjacent to East Fork of Fountain Creek, and that is going to be tabled to December 12th. So I'll save you having to listen to it because we'll have to read it again. Okay, item B is for a conditional use permit for church use at 720 West Highway 24 with a legal description of part lot 1, including part described as 529404 and excluding parts described as 505467 and 529063, all of lot 2, part of lot 3, excluding parts described as 505467 and 529063. West Corning subdivision is requested by the applicant Victory Life Church and property owner UC Health Pikes Peak Regional Hospital in the Central Business District Zone.
Mr. Chair, I am acting as the architect on this project and been working with the client, and so I respectfully recuse myself from this issue.
Anybody have a problem? You shall be recused. Okay. One of you girls gets to talk now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a brief presentation. So tonight, the applicant is Victory Life Church, and we do have Ken Hartsfield representing Victory Life Church, as well as a representative from Victory Life Church, Miss Eliza West, will be here and available for comment after my brief presentation. So beginning with the site, it is located in the southwestern quadrant of the city of Woodland Park. Here is an aerial photo showing the site in red. And the site is composed of about 3 parcels, or parts of parcels. It is immediately west of Highway 24. You can see both lanes of Highway 24 right here. It is immediately south of Lafayette Avenue. This is Park State Bank, the building right here, and you can see their parking lot. Looks like new blacktop on their parking lot on this photo anyway. Here is Foxworth, and this is the auto part shop, and the dollar store here, the new Microtel going in here, and of course the existing Country Lodge here, and City Market right here. So it gives you a general idea of the site. Here's a close-up view showing you the details around the site. It is an existing building, access off of Lafayette to the north, also access off of US Highway 24 here to the east. And this is just a right turn getting onto the highway. There's a median in between here, so you can't go straight across. At Lafayette, though, it is full movement, and you can go straight across. You can turn right, you can turn left, and cross the highway if you so dare. So here is the site. As I said, it's an existing building. They're not proposing to change the footprint in any way. The primary access is off of Lafayette. I just lost my cursor. There it is right here. This entire access here is a cut. There is no curb and gutter on this side of the street. There is curb and gutter, of course, along US 24, and there is an established and built sidewalk along the perimeter with US 24. So the entire site is this green site. This is a frontage road that takes you out towards Trout Creek Road to the southwest. And what you can see is an existing asphalt surface that the applicant is proposing to repair in order to accommodate the parking for this particular site. It will be converted from what was offices from a medical health building into a church use. The site plan that they submitted showed approximately 235 seats in the sanctuary area. And they are looking at sharing parking, and a parking agreement was submitted with the application and was in the packet that was distributed to all of the planning commissioners. They are proposing to share parking with Park State Bank. That agreement was in the packet. So that gives you an idea of some of the surrounding roads, some of the surrounding buildings, and some of the layout in the area. These are some photos, again, from Google Earth. This building that we're looking at is right here. This shows you that, first of all, it's a two-story building, and this shows you the upper level, and the bottom is the lower level coming in from on level with Lafayette Avenue. So this is looking at the site from the corner of Lafayette and Highway 24. You can see the ADA ramp. You can see the existing infrastructure, the street lamps that the city has installed, the sidewalk along Highway 24, the asphalt surface, some of the landscaping you can see along the edge of Highway 24 and that right-of-way, also some of the landscaping that exists along Lafayette. This is Park State Bank here and the site here. This bottom photo shows you from the corner of Lafayette and the frontage road looking into the site from the, the west, looking east into the site. And you can see that the road, again, is a frontage road that goes and curves around all the way to Trout Creek Road. You can see the existing parking surface. This is also part of the conditional use permit site, all of this grassed area. And this grassed area you can see here too. These are all parts of the lot that constitute the site. But they are looking at just minor improvements and just very small expansions to the existing asphalt surface of the parking lot. Here you can see where Lafayette enters into the site, and you can see the lower level of this structure, which will be primarily offices for the church use. And this is looking from the frontage road north through the site. Again, this is the building that will be a church use. You can see the existing parking structure, parking surface, and you can see some of the grassed area that surrounds the building, but is part of this conditional use permit and part of this site. So the site is here, these lots in here. And you can see there's Lafayette to the north and the frontage road as it comes around. This is in the Central Business Zone District, which is the light blue that you see surrounding it. And the purple on the other side is the PUD for the city market and all of those shops in that area. This is the site plan that was submitted. And what you can see here is a concept of a feasible layout for the parking for the proposed church use. They will be coming in with a zoning development permit with their building permit for the interior renovations, with that zoning development permit, they will have a full renovation to this parking structure, and we will be checking to make sure that they comply with all the parking requirements at that time for the on-site parking. Remember, 50 stalls will be provided at Park State Bank as well. So what he did was a parking calculation. He showed 291 seats. Our parking requirements are 1 parking stall for every 5 seats. He actually calculated using 291, which is an overcalculation. He shows on his site plan, or on his building plan, 235 seats. He is overestimating at 58 spaces. He's only required to show 47. These lower level for offices, again, he's overestimating. We don't have a requirement. It's all part of a church use, which is only 1 space for every 5 seats. So he meets the requirements at 47 spaces, and he's showing handicap spaces that meet the requirements as well, based on that. We are pleased that he is sharing parking with the Park State Bank, where the hours are offset so that there is ample parking for overflow parking, and there's even ample parking if they wish to expand their existing parking lot on site. As you can see, this area here that was all grassed in the photos, and this area here to the south could all be expanded into a parking lot if they so choose. But the fact that they're using existing on-site or off-site parking facilities is even better. So this is a rough conceptual, well, it's more than rough, it's a conceptual layout of the seats. You can see here that he's proposing 235 seats. He's actually only drawn 234, but I'm sure you can fit in more seats. You could even fit the 291 that he might be proposing based on his parking calculation. At any rate, this is a conceptual of a potential seat layout on the main floor of the building. The main floor is accessed from here or from this door here, and these are the upper level parking areas. This is the lower level. You can see they're proposing offices, a hearth and gathering area, and a couple of restrooms and some storage spaces. And again, this is accessed off the lower level from the ground level at Lafayette, and the parking surface that goes down at that level. So it just gives you an idea of some of the interior spaces. They will be doing some minor renovations, and we'll be submitting a building permit for that. They will do a full code study at that point. So right now we are here to consider this conditional use permit in this central business district to allow for a church use. A conditional use permit comes before the Planning Commission for approval for this use, and then goes in front of City Council for their final decision making. There are 11 criteria that this Planning Commission is used to seeing for conditional use permits. I'm going to very briefly touch on each one. There's the full staff report that details each of these conditions in paragraph form. So the first condition, is there a need and have all the impacts been mitigated? Staff does believe that this site is appropriate for the church use that is being proposed. The access is appropriate, its location and its frontage on Highway 24, its accessibility, the parking is adequate, and the space is adequate for the proposed church use. This location is a perfect location for the use that is being proposed. Are there any public health and welfare issues? No, staff did not see any impacts based on this new use at this location have been proposed as mitigated. Will there be any impact to property values? Well, the applicant is proposing to upgrade not only the interior, but some minor upgrades to the parking structure, the parking surface, and also the exterior of the building. So it would increase property values to the surrounding commercial and or residential areas. Does the church use harmonize with the area? Yes, it would harmonize with the surrounding areas. Staff does not see an impact. Does it comply with all of our city plans? Yes, it does. A church use is permitted as a conditional use. Does it apply to all? Does it comply with all of the city regulations in terms of the setbacks and all of the on-site building heights, those types of regulations? It does comply. There are no changes to the footprint. There's no changes to the height. The applicant has done a traffic trip generation letter that was included in the packet, and the traffic is accommodated by the surface and the surrounding existing roads and accesses as they exist. Are there any environmental impacts? There are none. Again, there are no changes that they're proposing. The footprint will remain the same. Utilities exist and are adequate to service the church use. Are there any public dangers that are anticipated? Well, they're not storing any hazardous equipment or anything on this site apart from the gathering space. There is no public danger anticipated from that gathering space. And again, staff also looks at architectural standards, fencing, landscaping, buffering, and the applicant is proposing to improve the chinking on the exterior of this historic landmarked building, which will enhance the architectural value and the surrounding property. So staff does find substantial compliance with all of the 11 conditional use permit standards and does recommend approval with conditions. I'm going to go through the conditions in brief now. So number 1, concurrent with the building permit submittal for the interior remodel, and the applicant shall submit a zoning development permit that includes the repair of the exterior chinking of this historic building. That must be done and completed prior to occupancy. The applicant must submit all required fees, including fees in lieu for the sidewalk, curb, and gutter adjacent to the road, which will not be constructed by the applicant or the property owner. They are proposing to construct that small portion from their access driveway on Lafayette all the way to the corner of Highway 24. The rest of the abutting sidewalk requirements will be most likely fees in lieu. And the applicant will also be responsible to repair any ADA ramps if repairs are necessary, and any existing sidewalk repairs on existing sidewalks. And 1C, they will also repair, including restriping, all of the on-site parking surface, including compliance with all ADA requirements for accessibility and adequate drainage. And the upgrade to the parking surface will be done with the zoning development permit and must be completed prior to occupancy of this church. Condition number 2, all exterior lighting shall be downcast and shielded with a temperature of 3,000 Kelvin or warmer and shall not exceed 15 feet in height. Number 3, at least 20% of the site is to remain open space. Number 4, pursuant to the municipal code, healthy existing significant trees, of which there are some on this site, shall be preserved to the extent reasonably feasible. Number 5, on-street parking along the north and south side of Lafayette for the length of the site boundary bordering Lafayette shall not be permitted, and this is for safety purposes and vision clearance purposes for getting into and out of the site and getting onto and out of Highway 24 and Lafayette and onto 24. Number 6, the property owner shall be responsible for cleaning, including snow removal of all existing and new immediately adjacent sidewalks constructed along and also including adjacent to Highway 24. That concludes my staff report, Mr. Chairman. I'm available for any questions. Mr. Ken Hartsfield is the architect for Victory Life Church and is available and can do a presentation for you, as is Eliza West, who is representing Victory Life Church.
Is there going to be a presentation by the applicant, or just for questions?
Just for questions. I don't believe they have a full-on presentation.
Okay.
Folks, any questions? Yeah, Lori, I don't see anything about signage.
A sign permit would be required for any signage proposed. There was no sign on site. There may have been, oh yeah, there is a sign. I'm sorry. There is the UC Health sign right here. To reface that will be a separate sign permit. It would just be changing the vinyl out from UC Health and using the same pole and the same mounting structure and putting in new vinyl.
No intention to do a unique sign for the church?
Nothing that's been submitted. Any new signage, any wall signage would be a separate sign permit that would be reviewed prior to putting up any new sign.
Anybody else? Questions?
I have some questions first. Or in the discussion, the background of the material you provided, there's discussion of what the site is. There's several lots, and apparently, except for one, partial lots, and your description you indicate all of the grass area around was covered. What are those exceptions and such? They're by a 5-digit number. It doesn't say.
Those are the
what are those numbers? What do they mean? And
Those are reception numbers for the deeds for each of those pieces of land. And it's really hard to see here, but here's this green line. That's one of the pieces. It's this little triangular piece that was left over with the expansion of the highway. So that's one of those parts that's left, that's described in one of those reception numbers. Another one is Lot 1, which is this piece right here. And then there's this remnant. The rest of it is Lot 2.
Do you know why all of that is not included? Why there's portions of the edges of those are excluded?
It's just the way, mostly it's the highway cut, when the highway went in, and then land was taken out of different parcels for that highway. And then maybe even the frontage road resulted in some of that. But if you look at your site plan that was submitted, you can see that the architect has shown in a dotted line, a faint dotted line, all the remnants and the pieces and the parcels.
Right. First off, in whatever paperwork is done for this, I guess it needs to be clear that those references carried through appropriately as opposed to the site looking like. I don't think it's quite as large as the red line you have circled.
That is the site.
That includes, that's after all of the exclusions?
Bits and pieces and parcels.
Okay. One of the reasons I'm asking is, I think there's some materiality here too, is the extent that additional parking needs come up. I have a problem with the parking arrangement that's proposed now, arising from the fact that a conditional use permit is a permanent condition that runs with the land. What we see is from Park Street Bank, a letter of intent or some sort of agreement for use for 5 years, maybe renewal, we're not sure what the terms are. I don't see the need to hold this up till actually an easement for parking. It doesn't necessarily have to be an easement for parking. If a condition is built, and one of the conditions to grant this conditional use is that the parking ratio be maintained. If the bank, for instance, had some provision upon sale, it goes away, or something else too. We can't suddenly have 50 spaces that are relied upon being removed. So the occupancy of the building will adjust down based on the sites that were currently or could be made available on the lot, or of another site that they could find. But it seems to me there's a mismatch right here, and we need to have a condition.
Right. I think what's important to keep in mind is that the parking requirement is 1 parking space for 5 seats. He's showing 235 seats. The minimum parking requirement is 47 spaces, and he shows enough on-site. So the overflow parking for events that the church might have or larger gatherings at different times of the year is what the 50 spaces. So
perhaps, although it seems to me that the number of seats is based upon the number drawn on the map. And as you described it, you made a point. There's room for a whole bunch more.
There is, but
and I say essentially the condition takes care of itself if the ratio is built into the condition. Conditional use exists as long as the appropriate ratio is maintained.
Yeah, but there's another consideration here for the number, and that's the fire code. What would the fire code allow the number of people in there?
Yeah, and that may be a higher number, maybe
Right,
a lower
yeah,
number.
exactly.
But without that,
That's part of this
without
discussion.
actually being built, some of the ZDP will have to review
The-
at that time what it is.
the code study will deal with all of the occupancy requirements, and the fire department will review the building at that time.
But with the number appropriately limited inside, it may be the number of parking places, but they don't have that number of parking places, the maximum necessarily laid out. Okay? I'm just saying, as long as that ratio is preserved, that takes the issue off the table. If not, I don't believe the Park Street Bank letter is appropriate for a permanent arrangement as results from a conditional use.
So you would like to add a condition that just talks about the 1-in-5 ratio being preserved?
1 in 5, that the building occupancy should be limited to ratio of 5 to 1 for the parking space available for their services.
Yep, and certainly make that in your motion. I don't know if there's any discussion, Mr. Chairman, on that point, if other commissioners want to weigh in on that.
Any issue from the applicant?
Hello, Ken Hartsfield, 1151 Sundance Circle, architect for the applicant. From my understanding, what you're proposing is that you'd like to make sure we maintain adequate parking for the number of people in the church if Park State Bank goes away or something else happens. And I'd be comfortable and representing the applicant that that would be a reasonable constraint. And since we do have some additional parking, if something would happen to Park State Bank or that agreement, we could provide additional parking, or if we need to, limit the number of seats within the building. Could you switch to the floor plan? The front portion is actually a platform, kind of in a sense, a stage for performance and music presentations. And so the number of seats that we're showing was actually reduced after I did the traffic study to reflect that the existing fireplace would remain and have access to that and not encroach into the seats, and that we have the large platform with the circulation required and the spacing of the seats. There's not much room for too many additional seats to be maintained. As far as the question on the fire department's requirements, that's primarily predicated on the exit size and number, and we comfortably fit within those limits with the existing doors and spaces in that building.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Ken, I got a question.
Yes.
And I've been in that building many times. It looks like you're pretty much removing all the interior walls to get that kind of size.
That's correct.
All kinds of little
Yes.
cubby holes in that there. I don't remember two sets of doors coming in that atrium there. There was one on the right.
Right,
Are you adding that one over on the left side?
down at the bottom.
Right there?
Yes. It's hard to point at from here.
Yeah.
So these are existing doors.
Right.
This is an existing door, and at the back there's an existing exit. We are proposing a new door on this side of the building to have access to the yard outside.
Sidewalks and that kind of
Sidewalk,
stuff.
patio, something like that, probably.
I'm assuming this parking lot had a lot of, because I went in the building quite a bit. So last time, the new ones are starting tomorrow? The new sound system is being installed tomorrow. Yeah, so, good. I won't say anything. Anyway, there was a lot of damage in that asphalt parking lot. A lot of the curbs were deteriorating, so I'm assuming, especially up in this corner at the bottom of it there, straight across from the entrance.
Yes.
Right in where that curve is there. Right in that area there, everybody's parking on dirt there because there wasn't any asphalt there. I'm assuming they're going to do what you have to do there.
We're not counting it for parking in that immediate area. Work it from this side. Along here,
I meant up where the parking is, the existing parking. That was
this
down where you were.
yes.
Okay, those ones that are outlined there, over in that corner, there was a lot of damage and just dirt, and the asphalt had kind
Yeah,
of come.
we intend to clean the parking lot, make
Okay.
patches as necessary. There's currently a railroad tie curb along the west and south side, and we'll perform maintenance on those and bring it back into compliance.
You have to add parking. You've got the room between that frontage road and...
There is opportunity in response to Mr. Brown's requirements that should we need to provide additional parking, there is opportunity on the footprint of the site.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Question. Just so that there's clarification, are there no sidewalks on the Lafayette Avenue, the west side?
There are no sidewalks, only exist along Highway 24 to the east. We proposed to extend that sidewalk on Lafayette around the corner to about this point here. So there would be continuation of the Highway 24 sidewalk. There is no sidewalk along Lafayette currently, nor is there any sidewalk along the frontage road. And we'd be looking at probably fees in lieu of installing that sidewalk at this time.
So as a person naturally would walk outside of the Park State Bank area, they're going to go along the exit of Park State Bank and go across over to the church. Is that sidewalk going to be straight with the actual, I mean, how far is the sidewalk going to go for safety reasons?
Well, we're proposing taking the sidewalk around the corner to there's a retaining wall here and some drainage structures. So we take it.
Because I was going to say, because with the way the Park State Bank is designed, it's not made for a pedestrian walkway.
Well, there's walkway along Park State Bank's frontage.
From the inside of where people are going to park, they're going to actually walk down where cars are coming in and coming out. There's no sidewalk going to the parking.
I think they were proposing to cross right here. And
Correct,
They're
which-
proposing to build a sidewalk right here. So there will
Maybe a crosswalk.
There could be a crosswalk. There's not one required at this point. They were looking at having one option, and I'm not sure. Do you want to come up, Eliza, and talk a little bit about how they were going to bring people across? They weren't proposing a crosswalk, but a crosswalk could be a requirement if you believe it's necessary. This was reviewed by Public Works. They didn't recommend any kind of a crosswalk. They also proposed crossing guards. And I'll let Eliza talk about how you're going to get people across.
Yes, Liza West, 346 Pinewood Road in Florissant. And so one of the things that we have is we have different, what we call grow teams. One of them is a parking team, which they are the ones that are greeting people even when they show up on the parking lot. And one of the things that we were looking at doing is actually getting like a shuttle. That's just part of our hospitality as people park. They don't have to cross. And that's a place for people to volunteer and serve and greet people so that the minute they hit the parking lot, even if it's across the street, they feel welcomed and at home. So that is going to be one of the parts of that.
One question I have is, do we know the flow as far as on the hardware store? Do they get deliveries on Sundays where you might have a semi-truck coming in through there? Or, you know, what time of day do they stop taking deliveries? Because if you had something going on at the church and you have some big semi coming in, I mean, safety. Do we know what time they stop taking deliveries? Do they take deliveries at night?
So we did send a referral to everyone within 150 feet. Foxworth would have got a referral. They didn't submit anything in writing as far as concerns about parking and loading and any of that. I would imagine if they are loading, they are on site. They're not loading from the road. They're not loading from Chestnut.
No, I'm
And
just talking
they're
about the
closed on
trucks
Sunday.
coming in. They have to come from somewhere. They're going to come off of Highway 24 most likely, making a right-hand turn between Park State Bank and the church site. And what I'm saying is, if they have a function at night, for instance, are there going to be delivery trucks going by, coming off the highway? I mean,
Actually, we have Jim from Foxworth here.
because when we had Papa Burpees, I would get my deliveries at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night.
So
Or
maybe we
the
can-
Banana Belt would get their deliveries starting at 7 o'clock in the morning and all the way 7 days a week.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about your deliveries?
Sure. Jim Olson, 1067 East US Highway 24, manager of Foxworth, and we are closed on Sunday, and we close on Saturday at 4. So we have no functions, we have no drivers, we have no deliveries. I've been there 12 years. We do nothing from Saturday night until Monday morning.
Any other questions for him? Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody else? Got anything else?
I do have one request for consideration by the applicant. The conditions as written, especially number 1, all relate to prior to occupancy. So I hadn't heard back from you, but repair of the exterior chinking prior to occupancy, submittal of all the fees prior to occupancy, and/or repair of the sidewalks, repair and restriping of the parking surface prior to occupancy. Were you planning on moving in immediately upon closing and operating as a church? Okay, so, because you probably can't fix the surface parking area until spring.
Right. We are actually looking at, if it goes as planned, late March, maybe April.
Okay.
So just depending on weather and all that fun stuff, construction.
Okay. Great, that's why I hadn't heard from you. It wasn't a concern. Sorry about that.
Question for you, Laura. Is there lighting in the parking lot along that
There's
the west side there
on the west side.
in the evening?
Not on the parking lot. I do know that there's all the street lamps along the sidewalk here that we saw in the photos. I don't believe there's any parking lot pole lighting on the sidewalk anywhere, or on the parking lot anywhere. And there might be just exit exterior lighting.
Is there any plans
Bars.
for that? Any requirements for that?
There's no plans that have been submitted at this point. Are there plans that you're looking at in the future for exterior lighting?
You're not anticipated to parking lot lighting. We do have exterior lights, lighting walkways and such outside the building currently.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Thank you. At this point, we'll move to the public comment. I got to get comment first, okay? No, you're fine. You're fine. You can just, no. Okay. Do we have anybody signed up? We just got to do it in order. She gets mad at me if I don't.
You have your mic.
Yes, I do. Mr. Nakai.
Good evening, Mike Nakai, 225 Morningstar Court. Laura, could you go back to the site plan that shows the parking?
Actually, you've got the mouse right there.
Oh. Okay, so if I read this correct, there are 2 ADA parking spaces?
Yes, they're right by the entrance, the southern vestibule. It says HC on them.
Okay. I understand that's, the minimum for that's number of parking spaces. Does it make sense to you that that's the minimum required for a 235 or 290 seat church? Does that make sense to anybody, that that's enough?
That is the standard, unfortunately, and it's based on the size of parking surface, parking lot. How many spaces are in the parking lot?
How many spaces are in this parking lot?
Yes.
But see, this site is only 32 or 34 spaces. They're sharing the next door. But the building, shouldn't the ADA parking that's next to the building support the number of people in it?
And they do. At 235 people, they're only required 47 spaces. And they're showing that on
and how many ADA?
2.
Okay, so
one
2.
for the first 25, one for the next 25.
Okay.
So
Okay.
they're
All
just
right.
in there. And that everything on Park State Bank is overflow parking.
Okay.
But the applicant if they feel they need to add handicap spaces, they certainly have the prerogative to do that.
Sure. I mean, if this was a fitness center, I don't think you would need more than 2, but it's a church, and I would think you might need more than 2. But that's just me. Okay. I know that you guys are going to go through the ZDP and address some of these fire code issues. I just had a few questions, and I don't know whether, Ken can address them now. I think you mentioned you're going to remove some walls from that main floor. I'm assuming those aren't load-bearing walls. But one thing is when is this complete open area over the sanctuary, is the construction of a 1948 building sufficient to support current snow load standards and whatnot? So maybe he can speak to whether or not that review will be done to current standards, or will it revert back and be grandfathered back to the standards of 1948 because it's an assembly building existing and it will go backwards. Same thing for the fire as far as egress standards. Are those egress standards going to be current or 1948? Same as with the sprinkler system. I find it kind of hard to believe we would build a new church without a sprinkler system, but if we put something in an old church, then they get grandfathered. Anyway, those are just a couple safety questions. Since your criteria for a CUP includes public safety, public health, I think it's appropriate for you guys to consider that. Okay, thank you.
I believe there are, correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, that's vaulted ceilings in there. I remember there, I think the ceilings are vaulted, so I don't think that's load bearing is a problem.
The main roof is expressed inside the building. It's got some large timber trusses, and to address the issues, we're looking at the planning issues tonight, I believe, but when we go through the ZDP and the building permit process, we will be looking at loads. Certainly we'll be complying with all current fire egress requirements. Sprinkler systems will be current. Exiting, even the current standards, existing doors do suffice for the occupant load we're proposing. So we'll certainly anticipate making a large number of people. We want it to be safe, and we'll be addressing those issues definitely in the building review and permitting process.
Thank you. Mr. Neal.
Excuse me, my name is Paul Neal. I live at 1470 Masters Drive in Woodland Park. I have two areas that, since it's a comment, they're questions. Am I allowed to question, or do I have to word it as a comment?
We'll let you know.
Okay. If I get out of line, John, please let me know. The first has to do with traffic control, and I think you'll probably agree. The church services on Sunday and Wednesday, if the traffic on 24 southwest bound, I'm not worried about Lafayette, southwest bound, if it starts backing up, is there a possibility of working with the applicant to add a condition that they must coordinate with the police for traffic control for 15-minute block of time prior to and after services, if it turns out the traffic coming in before services and coming out after services starts to become a safety issue? I don't think you would object to it. It's just a telephone call to coordinate, but that can be a little treacherous, that lane trying to get into UC Health building. Okay, so that's just one comment. The second one has to do with the language in what you showed us, the conditions. The language changed on point number 6. If you want to pull up, if I want to pull up. Okay, right now it says the property owner shall be responsible, yada, yada. What was sent out in the packet, it said to mitigate for the lost revenue to the city for church use. That begs the question, the ownership of the property has not changed, so the tax responsibility has not changed. It's still a business generating revenue from rental to a church, correct? Or did they sell it to the church?
They will be closing on it. The church will be the property owner.
Oh, they will be. Okay, that's where I had the confusion. So is there going to be lost revenue? Is it automatic?
Because it's a church, non-exempt or an exempt use.
Will not pay property tax.
So okay. And that is a choice of a home rule city. It's not a guarantee, it's a choice to extend the tax exemption granted by the state.
No.
Yes, it is.
Federal law.
It's called RLUIPA.
I spoke to the county commissioner about this very topic, and he said it's up to the city of Woodland Park.
No.
I'll go back to the county commissioner. I withdraw the question.
Is he up for election?
Okay.
Just wondering, that's...
Yeah. Okay. Those are the only two comments I had. Thank you.
In 1992, there was something passed called RLUIPA, and that was passed by the federal government. It says that any kind of church or educational part of a church, I believe, if they want to go into an area of any kind of zoning, and she's going to correct me, I can just see the way she's doing that. But basically, they can move into any area. The zoning doesn't have a major factor on doing that, and she's going to give you the fine point of that. So.
And I truly don't need it. The county commissioner actually is the appraiser. Yeah, I went up there and spoke to him about how that works with the home rule, and he said it's up to Woodland Park to grant or not grant the tax exemption, but it is within their power to deny it.
That is not our understanding. There is a federal law that nonprofits are tax exempt and do not pay property tax. Now, there is sometimes an option to do a PELT, which is a payment in lieu of taxes.
Correct.
But that can usually only be negotiated if there is an annexation, and you're negotiating an annexation agreement when everything is on the table. The RLUIPA is the Religious and Institute Act that President Clinton put in place, and that had to do with how communities review places of worship and not treat them any differently than other uses. That was the result. That law was put in place because some communities were trying to move tax-exempt properties out of their downtown core.
Everything you're saying is exactly what I thought. And I learned this from my daughter. She was the CEO of a non-for-profit organization. And it was during a conversation with the county assessor. Well, you had the chief appraiser and the assessor. I met with them both at the same time, and they were the one that gave me the tutorial that a home rule municipality actually has the option of granting or denying the tax exemption. The state grants the exemption, but the home rule does not have to honor it.
I think one of the problems we might have is if the last church moving into town has to pay taxes and the rest don't.
Agreed.
Okay, that
Agreed.
might be a little problem.
It would be a huge problem.
Okay.
Yeah, just perception if nothing else. But, okay, you answered it. The ownership has changed.
Okay, so I'd like to answer your first question, not answer, but just comment on. So this photo shows quite clearly the southbound lane of 24. It is a right turn decel lane all the way down from the intersection further to the north. So I'm
Keep
not
coming down. That's the one.
And then it stops, and then it's just a two-lane highway.
You can turn in to the site off of
Right
there.
here.
Right there.
Yeah.
That's the one where I would recommend.
Right here?
Right.
This length
Right there.
is the backup that you think will happen?
Yes.
This is where you think it'll happen on 24?
On 24, yes. If they come in off of Lafayette, it's not a problem because there's plenty of room. Some people are going to continue straight and try to do that straight in approach, and that's where I would just make sure that the police have I mean, if, I'm rooting for your church, have a lot of attendance, that there might be a lot of congestion there, you know, those 15 minutes prior to church services and coming immediately out. Sometimes, you know, you can even ask them for the posse to come over here. We do it out at the Divide Pantry.
So I think that's feasible, and I think the applicant has heard your comment,
Yeah,
and it's certainly something that they and their traffic group will address.
Good, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Joe Fury, 565 Pembroke in Woodland Park. Similar to Mr. Neal, did the traffic impact study address the flow of traffic departing services and events to northbound 67 or eastbound 24? Just wondering about, you know, a big line of traffic on Browning trying to get through those stop signs and then shooting across 67 or cutting across traffic to get in the left turn lanes to go eastbound 24.
I think one of the things that happens is that there are several ways to get to that property. You can get to that property several ways. On Sundays, Smokehouse is closed. The buildings behind them are closed, and you can certainly come off 67 and go up Browning, and you can come to that church that way. So I think people will find, I don't know what the mix of your congregation is and where they come from, but there's more than one way outside of going on 24 to get in that property, because I've used all of them.
I'm more concerned about leaving, not getting there.
They can go back the same way they came in, too.
Okay.
So,
They would love to have that problem and have too many cars. That's just, most churches are that way.
Mr. Chairman, there was a trip generation letter that was submitted with the application that gave you a little bit of information on the amount of trips that a church use would potentially generate. It was not a full-blown traffic study, so we don't have the impacts to 24 and all of the others, but the final conclusion of that trip generation letter is that there's less traffic and that there are no requirements for any other improvements. And that trip generation letter was produced by Mr. Ken Hartsfield, and if you have any specific questions, we can bring him up again.
A question for the applicant. Is this an existing, might as well come up here, she's going to yell at me for not letting you do that. Okay, but is this an existing congregation meeting someplace else?
Yes.
In town here?
Yes, I would love to kind of tell you, we're right now running the gym of CSCS, and we've worked with Principal Nils and Shayna over there for 2 years. And, of course, running the space. Right now, we're running it Wednesday night and then all day Sunday. But, of course, there's challenges there that we're doing setup, tear down every single time we meet. And so we're running just to kind of, I felt like I probably needed to share this initially, but right now on a Sunday service, we're running anywhere from 150 to 180. A Wednesday night is about 50 to 60. So, and in preparation for growth, because we'll have greater exposure off Highway 24, we're looking at immediately when we go into the facility to actually add a Saturday night service, which even if we doubled, it would kind of minimize any impact from the concerns that I heard out here.
So the people you've got coming there now, turning out on 67, where we're going to put in that double turn lane, you've not had a problem with traffic there?
No, not at all.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody? Yes, sir.
That's great, 150 for a service. Do you think that the 5 people per car estimate is fair? Do you have any idea how many cars you typically have on a service that's 150 to 180?
think the solution to the traffic is just ask the state police to hold all the tourists so the people from the church can get in and out and have priority.
What a plan. Okay, anybody else for any public comment?
I just have a comment.
We got to have you on the record of who you are.
I know. Valerie Lundy, 1450 Eagle Trace Court, Woodland Park. It's a point on your chart where you say the parking on-site, off-site. Everybody keeps throwing on 47. The number on the chart says 34 on-site and 54 at Park State. Doesn't say 47. And you can count the suckers, and there's not 47. Just a comment. I'm not saying it's a problem, but the number's not right for what was being said.
How would you answer that, Laura?
The applicant did overestimate, and what he's showing here is 58 spaces, or his calculation shows 58 spaces. He's only required to show 47.
No. The number that I'm talking about is at the bottom there. It says spaces provided, on-site 34, off-site 50, total 84. I'm not talking about the calculation. I'm talking about provided.
Okay, yep, 34 on-site.
Where'd 47 come from?
47 is based on 235 seats.
That would be required, though.
That's the required. So the 34 on-site, so some of the required parking will be off-site.
Right.
Yes.
And back to Lee's comment. Right.
When they get that busy, they go to 2 services. Okay, anybody else? Okay, we'll close the public comment. Any final comments from the applicant? If you don't, that's fine too. That's part of the procedure. Okay, then we'll revert to us here. And any final comments that you'd like to address?
If it's helpful, I drafted a sample condition 7. I'll give it to you. It's considered. Number 7, the maximum occupancy of the building shall be limited from time to time to such number as is consistent under applicable city ordinances with then available parking either on-site or off-site.
You're telling me that we're going to have to go out there and count cars every week?
No, it's
Who's going to keep track of this?
Could we just say 1 to 5? Could we say maximum occupancy limited to parking 1 space for every 5 seats?
I thought it's used to reference the city ordinance.
Boy, that's a lot of words, Lee.
Here's the language.
Does anyone else want to massage that language?
I just heard in what he read the fact that you can cut down the amount of people coming to your church, but somebody's going to have to verify this. So somebody's going to be out there with a clicker verifying how many cars are there, how many people are in attendance. You already got people doing that.
I thought the main concern with this is if they somehow lose the option to park at Park Street, that they would be required to adjust either the attendance per service or find other parking, which the applicant has been willing to agree to. And I think we're just getting tied up in knots with an issue that they've already agreed to solve a simple problem. They have the parking now, and if they don't have the parking in the future, they'll either find it or have to adjust.
So do you propose to change this language, Peter?
I just want to move on.
We can certainly do that. Okay, at this point, what we can do is deliberate among ourselves. So, anybody else want to talk about this going on? It's your turn.
Are you talking about just the parking discussion or general discussion?
General discussion.
Okay. Since Mr. Neal brought it up and talked to the tax assessor, I don't want to stop anything tonight by any means, but I would like to get a ruling or some discussion in the future or some piece of paper that tells me that the home rule tax exemption that he talked to the assessor is right or wrong, or is there a decision that the city could make that we're not aware of? I'd just like to get some feedback on that in a future meeting.
We can follow up on that.
Perhaps a suggestion would be to talk to our city attorney and have him give you an opinion on that, and you can report that back at our next meeting. Does that work?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm still a little concerned about the lighting for the outer parking places. However, it seems like the congregation, the church, is very concerned with their welcoming committees and whatnot. So as long as the church is there, then it's probably okay, because it sounds like they start right from the very beginning. So.
Any other comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Well, I'll move that we approve CUP 19-004, subject to the conditional uses that the staff has indicated. And I don't know where to go with the wording that Commissioner Brown suggested, but that the minimum, and adding a seventh, thank you, that the maximum occupancy of the building okay, this is a good one, shall be limited from time to time, such number as is consistent with the then available parking, either off-site or on-site, or something close to that.
Okay, so may I read what he gave me?
You read it.
Okay. And I'm going to make one change from city ordinances to parking standards. So the maximum occupancy of the building shall be limited from time to such number as is consistent under applicable parking standards with the then available parking either on-site or off-site. Does that make sense to everyone?
So what we shall do is we will vote on that amendment. Okay? If we're not going to do that...
You only got the first...
That addition?
You've only got the mover.
Okay.
Right. I just clarified it. It was exactly what Peter said.
I added the seventh, which this is the seventh, to the set of conditions that the staff has recommended.
And you need a second to that.
Call for the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right. Starting with Jeff Watson.
Yes.
Lee Brown.
Yes.
Alan Carrick.
Yes.
Vicki Good. Jerry Penland.
Yes.
Peter Scanlon.
Yes.
Charles Schrader.
Yes.
And John DeVoe.
Since it's going to pass anyway, I am going to vote no, because I don't think that amendment is correct, and I don't think we should put them under that kind of constraint, since you can do it time to time. I vote no.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So this case moves forward to the City Council agenda. Next Thursday is the first reading, and the first meeting in December is the public hearing. First Thursday in December.
November 21st.
No.
December 5th.
Thank you. December 5th.
Are you through?
I'm through.
Okay. Any other reports or comments from us? You guys? Anything else you'd like to talk about for the good of the order? How about you, Sally? Is there anything you'd like to talk about? Under reports?
Yes, I would like to remind everyone, this is the only meeting we have in November, but we will be meeting on December 12th. We do have an amendment to the Sturman's PUD in Innovation Park. So there is a proposal for an auto repair service use near Trout Creek Road. You'll be receiving that the week prior to the December 12th meeting, so December 6th we'll distribute the packets. And then I did leave on your desk this evening the monthly report from October, and we highlighted the Board of Review. They don't meet very often, but we had a meeting in October. That was a variance to a crawl space height, and the Board of Review did grant that variance. They also met in February, which was the kickoff to adding electronic submittals for residential projects. So a builder of single-family homes in a residential zone could submit electronically over the internet, and Regional Building Department came up last February to demonstrate that process. Dave Burgess has done a great job of encouraging our builders, and even homeowners can do this by opening an account. It's fairly simple. You pay online. It's very slick, and every morning Dave looks at the electronic submittals to see what has come in through the computer system, and we're able to review it and sign off on it, and it's very slick. Saves a lot of time and efficiency. So we're really pleased to be able to work with Regional Building Department on these efficiencies.
Are you getting a fair amount of people doing that?
Fair amount, Dave?
Okay. Is that it? Okay, what we'll do, we're gonna. Oh, great.
I'd like to say that the City of Woodland Park has partnered with Main Street this past week in setting up 3 mornings of meetings with the local property owners of Main Street, and we were talking about placemaking strategies. We talked about the walkability of downtown, the signage, as well as streetscapes and facade improvements. I attended this morning. The city mayor and manager was there along with Sally, and our Main Street director, Gail Wingard. Vicki attended yesterday. So I would like to say that I see a real positive interaction between the property owners and the City of Woodland Park. It was a really good meeting.
Thank you. We're going to adjourn. We're going to reconvene at 15:15 for the work session. So it's potty break time and whatever you want to do. And we'll meet back here promptly at 8:15. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.